Dear colleagues, it is a time for panel number 3. Many of you came to this panel to really meet and discuss very important topic for the Baltic states. Thank you to Reinhold, who has actually started the introduction for this panel, because we will have really distinguished guests, and we will be talking about EU support, NATO, the strengths of the Baltics, and how we facilitate our growth in the future. So, by not further ado, I do understand that our sort of breaks are too little for you to have a good networking event, but please take it very seriously. This is the last panel, and we will come to networking once more. So, first of all, I would like to introduce the first keynote speaker, because we will have 2 keynote speakers for this panel, and then we will have a discussion. Colleagues, in this discussion, instead of really sitting and talking among ourselves, I will try to give you the opportunity to give the questions to our distinguished speakers. So, our first guest note speaker is Valdis Dombrovskis, who is European Commissioner for Economy and Productivity, Implementation and Simplification. We all heard that every name in this commission is so important for Latvia right now and for the whole Baltic states. He also holds the role of the Executive Vice President for an economy that works for people. So, dear Commissioner, the floor is yours.
Labdien, Riga! Prieks redzēt visus 3 Baltijas valstu ārvalstu investoru organizācijas vienoti koordinējot savus pozīcijas un pulcējamies šeit Latvijā. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests. Thank you for the invitation to join you today to share my thoughts on the investment climate in the Baltic states and what the EU is doing to address joint challenges. I'm very glad to participate in this forum, which gathers the views and insights of such distinguished speakers and seeks to strengthen regional cooperation between Estonia, Latvia and Lithuania. This cooperation is as important today as when our countries regain their independence. Our continued success depends on regional unity, policy clarity, and strong support from the EU, particularly in response to geopolitical shifts and economic uncertainty. Investment is a catalyst that sparks growth, productivity, innovation, and job creation. But in order for investment to work its full effect, there must exist a foundation of stability and security. The Baltic states, Ukraine and Europe as a whole are living in a new geopolitical reality. We find ourselves in a more complex and volatile world where this foundation appears to be shakier than any time before this century. Let me begin with reference to our most pressing challenge, preserving our security by taking greater responsibility for our defense. As we have heard earlier today, Russia's brutal war of aggression against Ukraine has amplified investor concerns and underscores the necessity of defense-related investments. The Baltic states have been, relative to the size of their economies, the biggest supporters of providing the financial, humanitarian and military aid Ukraine needs to continue its war of survival and of targeting the Russians' ability to wage war. For several years now, Latvia, Lithuania and Estonia have demonstrated leadership and foresight by investing to enhance their defense capabilities. The Baltic states have a strong voice in the European Commission with a High Representative of Foreign Affairs and Security Policy Kaja Kallas and the first ever European Commissioner for Defence, my friend Andrius Kubilius, and myself. We can also count on a broader regional support from Executive Vice President for Technological Sovereignty, Security and Democracy, Henna Virkkunen, and the Commissioner for Budget, Piotr Serafin. Following the NATO enlargement to Finland and Sweden, the Baltic Sea now resembles a NATO lake. We are also grateful to the support for our NATO partners, notably the UK, Canada and Germany, for their solidarity and support in deploying troops in NATO's eastern flank. So you see, the Baltic states have strong support from wider region and the EU as a whole, recognizing that Europe takes more responsibility for defending itself. The truth is that Europe has every advantage over the Russian aggressor in terms of economic weight, technology and population. The priority is now to make these advantages count by rebuilding Europe's defensive capabilities and defence sector development. This requires a significant and sustained investment. The EU has already taken decisive steps to facilitate this investment. Our Rearm Europe Readiness 2030 initiative can mobilise an additional €800 billion in defence spending across the EU. The initiative includes a coordinated activation of the national escape clause in the Stability and Growth Pact. This will facilitate a rapid increase in defence spending by allowing member states to temporarily deviate from the normal fiscal requirements. Latvia, Lithuania and Estonia have all decided to request the activation of national escape clause. Just last week, the EU ambassadors of member states reached agreement on another element of this initiative, a new €100 billion loan instrument, and we expect the vote to approve this agreement tomorrow. This instrument will provide loans to member states to invest in key defence areas like missile defence, drones and cyber security. So my message here is very clear. The EU is now taking bold steps to strengthen our defence. That is the single most important action we can take to strengthen the investment climate also in the Baltic states and secure region's long-term prosperity. While security remains an outstanding policy priority, we must not neglect pursuing also other strategic objectives. Investment also requires macroeconomic stability. The Baltic states have undergone a dramatic economic transformation since joining the EU, confirming that they made the right choice by joining the EU and NATO and introducing the euro. While the current economic context is challenging, growth continues, and the Commission latest economic forecast projects growth of between 2 and 3.1% in the three Baltic states next year, outperforming the EU average of 1.5%. This reflects also how all three countries are pursuing an appropriate policy mix to strengthen the resilience of their economies. This is crucial since we all know that a weak economy presents an easy target for populists and aggressors. More broadly, the Baltic states have many assets and advantages when it comes to attracting and retaining the investment. I am sure that many of you present here today can confirm that investment in the Baltic states can expect a significant return driven by region's favourable business environment, competitiveness cost, respect for the rule of law and impressive digital skills and infrastructure. The study prepared by the Foreign Investors Council Latvia finds that overall sentiment of the foreign investors about the investment climate in Baltic states is cautiously optimistic, as we heard this morning today. We have heard in particular investors acknowledge progress in digitalization of public administrations and recognize regulatory improvements. However, the region continues to face specific challenges that hamper investment growth, many of which result from Russia's war of aggression against Ukraine. They include, for example, higher energy prices, decreases in foreign direct investment, more challenging external trade environment, and perception of geopolitical risks. The EU recognizes these challenges and is providing direct financial support for the implementation of measures to address them. The current EU budget already provides significant funding opportunities for the region under the various programs, notably the Recovery and Resilience Facility and Cohesion Policy. The Recovery and Resilience Facility has made nearly €7 billion of EU financing available to Baltic states to support implementation of crucial investments and reforms to improve also the business environment and competitiveness. It finances important projects focused on, for example, digitalization, strengthening the workforce skills, supporting innovation capacity, or promoting the green transition of companies. Cohesion funding has allocated €14 billion for 3 Baltic states under the current EU budget period for support in areas like infrastructure, research and innovation, and SME support. It is important that Baltic states remain focusing on efficiently using those EU funds, using the support to increase security, spur economic activity, and improve living standards. Looking ahead, the rolling out of cohesion funds in the nearest years is going to play an increasingly important role in public investment. Executive Vice President for Cohesion and Reforms is working on providing tailored support to the eastern border regions through the EU's post-2027 multi-annual budget, and he will visit Latvia and Estonia next month. The EU is therefore putting its money where the mouth is when it comes to addressing the economic challenges faced by the Baltic states and working to improve business and investment climate in the region. More broadly, the European Commission is treating these geopolitical developments as a call for action. The investment climate in Baltic states will also benefit from the EU's broader agenda to enhance competitiveness. At the beginning of this year, the Commission presented its competitiveness compass to guide our work in building this more competitive Europe. There is a real momentum for bold action and work is already well underway. We are making the most of our main economic asset, the single market of 450 million consumers, by tearing down its remaining barriers to boost EU economy while attracting global talent and investment. We are integrating European capital markets through our Savings and Investments Union to better channel our household savings, estimated at 10 trillion euros, towards productive investments. We are closing Europe's innovation gap and mobilizing financing for innovative businesses to scale up. We are investing heavily in strategies to develop skills needed for future labour markets, including digital skills. We are reducing Europe's energy costs while decarbonising our economies. We are also working hard to deepen our cooperation with existing trade partners and finding opportunities with new ones. I have been given responsibility for driving and coordinating European Commission's work on simplification or cutting red tape. Work is already well underway to meet the ambitious targets we have set to reduce all administrative costs for companies by 25% and by 35% for small and medium-sized enterprises. We know that in an uncertain world, international investors will follow our progress in building a more competitive Europe closely in the weeks and months ahead. Our job now is to make sure that this interest endures in the long term. To conclude, the European Commission is determined to deliver a stronger, secure and more competitive Europe. We need to continue to leverage our Baltic unity to influence broader EU and NATO policies to strengthen our economic and security position. First, we must ensure the security of the region by continuing to invest in our collective defence. And secondly, we must act together to attract and encourage investment in the Baltic states to unlock the region's full economic potential and ensure its long-term prosperity. We need to think boldly and act together. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Commissioner. I think we all heard here really the action what Commission is taking in order to be agile, be resistant to the geo-economic conditions which we have. Now I would like to call the second keynote speaker, Thomas Östros, the Vice President of the European Investment Bank. And Thomas Östros is a Swedish economist, the social democratic politician who had served as a Vice President of the European Investment Bank since January 2020. Thomas, the floor is yours.
Commissioner, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for the invitation to take part of this very important conference on the investment climate in the Baltic states. And I would like to thank the Foreign Chambers of Commerce in Latvia for the timely and insightful research piece that we had the chance to have a look at before this started. As you know, the European Investment Bank Group has been very active in the Baltic region already since 1993. Over the past 5 years alone, we invested more than 4 billion euros in financing to the region. And it is a wide range of investment opportunities that we have seen over these years. Infrastructure, of course, innovation, very important, education, and not least energy independence. And as we invest, we are a long-term, patient investor. That is also a strong signaling effect to other investors that the Baltic states are stable, resilient, forward-looking, and innovative. The research presented today highlights several key challenges that require urgent attention: labor shortages and talent retention, energy security, as well as security and defense capacity. Investors are also calling for increased public investment in education, R&D, and strategic infrastructure, as well as access to expertise, not just financing for complex projects. These are not only areas where EIB can contribute, they are at the core of our investment priorities. Allow me to highlight 3 areas where the EIB Group is actively responding to the needs identified in the Foreign Chambers of Commerce in Latvia report: security and defense, education and innovation, and energy and strategic autonomy. Let me start by mentioning a few words on security and defense. We are going through a transition as a bank, the EIB, because we have a very strong call from our 27 member states that are our shareholders that we should increase our activity in security and defense. And this year in March, our board of directors expanded our financing eligibilities to include projects dedicated to purely military use, such as barracks, storage facilities, drones, helicopters, radars, satellites, advanced avionics, propulsion systems and optics, and still maintain our position as a AAA bank that is very strong on the international global capital markets. And we have certainly taken that call very seriously and are working on an active pipeline of a huge number of projects that we are now implementing. Earlier this month, I was actually in Vilnius for the signature of an advisory agreement with the Lithuanian Ministry of Finance for the development of Rudninkai military base, a 1.2 billion euro project that will host the German NATO brigade. This is one of the most ambitious defense infrastructure projects in the region. And as highlighted in the research, investors are not only seeking financing, they are also seeking for expertise and know-how. That is why technical assistance is such an integrated part of what we do. This project is an example of how the EIB Group is responding with both financing and technical advisory services to ensure that projects are bankable, resilient, and strategically aligned. Education and innovation is, of course, also key for competitiveness. The research findings also underscore the need to invest in human capital to address labor shortages and retain talent. At the EIB Group, we see education and research as essential to long-term competitiveness. Let me give you an example. We have financed the University of Latvia new academic center, a flagship project that strengthens the country's research ecosystem and helps to keep top talent in the region. We are also supporting innovation ecosystems across the Baltics, not least under InvestEU and together with the European Innovation Council. And we also directly finance highly innovative small and medium-sized companies in this region, which in itself are very strongly based on top-edge knowledge. On the energy side and the strategic autonomy, the Baltic states have shown leadership in reducing dependency on Russian energy. Today, Russian gas accounts for 13% of EU imports, and the RePower EU roadmap sets out a clear path to eliminate it entirely, banning new contracts by the end of 2025 and phasing out existing ones by 2027. The EIB Group has been extremely active in the field of energy, also before the brutal Russian invasion of Ukraine, but not least after, to cope with the ensuing energy crisis that came. We have doubled our investment in the field of energy to 30 billion euros last year to support energy independence in Europe. Renewable and sustainable energy, energy efficiency, and of course grids and interconnectors. That is so important for an energy region to be efficient. The EIB is committed to support continuously this transition. In Latvia, we are helping Latvenergo refurbish their power distribution network, and we are financing a pan-Baltic renewable portfolio, helping to modernize energy systems and improve resilience. We are also working with companies like Enefit Green to build Estonia's largest wind farm, or the Ignitis Group, one of the largest energy groups in the region and long-standing EIB partner on renewable energy and energy infrastructure across the Baltics. Such initiatives are not only critical for climate action, they are essential for Europe's energy independence and economic security. So let me close with a clear message. The EIB Group's investments and presence are strong signals of confidence to the international investor community, and our reinforced presence in the Baltic states, including this spring when we opened new offices in Riga and Tallinn, reflects our long-term commitment to the region. Our colleagues on the ground are ready to work hard with local partners to identify and develop new investment opportunities. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. And now I would like to call all the panelists to join me here on the scene. So Andre, where is Andre? Yeah, Māris Riekstiņš, please join us as well. And Valdis Dombrovskis, please join us on the scene. So, while colleagues are joining, let me introduce the other panelists. I think it is very important. We have heard from the Commission, we have heard from the investment opportunities and the need and the requirement from the representative of European Investment Bank. So, our two other panelists is Andre Kusvek. Have I pronounced correctly?
It's a long time since I heard it so well said.
Good. President and CEO of the Nordic Investment Bank. And Andre is coming from the Baltic region. Yeah, this is great. Andre, you are from Estonia. You have a big ties with the whole Baltic environment. So when you see and I will come to this question on your reflections. Before I will go to Māris Rieksniņš. Māris Rieksniņš is the parliament representative of Latvia to NATO. Māris has a really great diplomacy experience working in the different states and serving Latvia. So we will ask you as well, Māris, about the NATO and how we could cooperate, and defense is one of the topics. But back to you, Andre. So, Nordic Investment Bank, and how do you see the topics what we have discussed? The need to prioritize defense, the necessity of investments in the infrastructure and the energy sector, energy supply. Where do you see the Nordic investment banks and how do you stand for it?
Thank you very much, and it's a pleasure to be here at this distinct panel. The Nordic Investment Bank is owned by 5 Nordic and 3 Baltic countries, and that's what I represent here rather than my own personal legacy. But I think the market sentiment matters a lot, and we heard 2 separate reports today. What was maybe a little bit surprising to me was that the relatively gloomy picture, but I would maybe relate it to the great ambitions of the Baltic countries that, to me, it a little bit falls into the category that, like being happy, is something which is based on a very simple mathematical formula. You take the reality and you divide it by expectations. And the Baltics have been going through 30 plus years of really rapid development, very positive development, quite a lot of foreign investment, and maybe the past few years have not been quite as great, and there are external reasons for it, maybe as well as internal. But of course the war, Russia's aggression against Ukraine is one of these. COVID, of course, just before that was the other one, which affected many sectors. But I would say, all in all, the potential of the 3 Baltic countries continues to be high. I think people are smart, and if you are a small country, you need to be smart, you need to be fast, and you need to be willing to work hard. And I think all these 3 components are very much in place here. Maybe 2 quick other reflections also on the energy sector. I think if we look at the economic potential and the competitiveness in particular, I think, what I call AAA energy. And the AAA is mostly used for credit ratings. And, EIB is AAA rated. We are AAA rated as NIB. But in the energy sector, I would say energy would need to be available, accessible, and that means also all the distribution lines and taking it to where it is needed, but also affordable. So that AAA, I think, is not quite there yet, but each of the 3 countries is working on it. I think on the average price basis, there is not a very big problem compared to the continental Europe, but it is a bigger problem if you compare to the Nordic countries, where the energy tend to be cheaper. Much bigger problem is actually the volatility of the energy price. Makes it super difficult to predict anything. So that's on the energy. Secondly, I think what needs to happen more is greater cooperation between private sector and governments. And it seems that we all know about it. And sometimes we do things, but then sometimes we forget. And it has to be Often it is related to the election cycle and the governments, needing to be popular at certain times. But I feel that, this cooperation, be it on building infrastructure on the PPP basis, and I have to give credit to Latvia here, the Kekava bypass, for instance, which we also co-financed, EIB and NIB, is a great example, great positive example. I would like to see more of similar projects also in Latvia, but in the other Baltic countries. And then something which we can learn, I think, from the Nordic countries is that to build clusters where you basically combine public sector setting up infrastructure, it could be technopark, it could be something similar, then private sector coming to invest, and particularly in the research and development. R&D is very, very important to keep small countries competitive, but then also involving academia. And that's where this human potential comes in. And Sweden is a prime example of these clusters. You take the Lund University or around it cluster on the medical and physics sciences. You take the Gothenburg on the automotive and electrifying transport cluster. And there is a lot more. Finland now, we have just financed in Kuopio a gene therapy factory where there is private sector, public sector, and the university. I think more of that is needed. Finally, on defense, colleague Thomas already said a few things about it. NIB, we were making a very significant step last year in June, enabling ourselves to invest in defense and security. We have now been doing it, financing both private sector. The first deal was actually a Finnish company called Savox Communication, which is providing communications and visibility equipment to Patria, the largest Finnish defense company. But we also signed this month earlier a 400 million euro loan to the Lithuanian government against a very specific investment plan over the next 3 years to actually prepare that Rudninkai campus where there is also hopefully a PPP project then coming later on, but we already gave a little bit of a lead for the Lithuanian government to prepare that one, but also other parts of its resilience and defense structure. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Andre. Mar, I would like to ask you, I do know that during the break we had discussions about what's new is coming from the Fiscal Sentiment Index. What are the findings, what you made for yourself in terms of where the defense and the business come together? Maybe you could reflect a little bit on the Sentiment Index discussion.
Yes, thank you very much. Well, I see that today's whole discussion shows that the questions of defense and competitiveness in a current geopolitical context are strongly intertwined. And clearly, when we are talking about strengthening the defense expenditure, and I was presenting the main instruments European Commission is unveiling for this, it's not only important how much we spend, it's also important how we spend. And that's why there is a lot of emphasis in our Rearm Europe initiative, Readiness to 2030, to strengthen the European defense industrial base, because that's important also for Europe's autonomy, for actually us being certain that we are able to use capabilities and also weapon systems which are at our disposal in a way how it is needed and when it is needed. So that's why there is this emphasis on strengthening defense industrial base, and that's obviously where also the private sector and private investment comes in. So we see strong potential there. Actually, we already saw, for example, the share prices of European defense companies, the listed defense companies, soaring after our announcement. So we see that Businesses already are seeing opportunities there. Also, the funding which we are providing through the European Defence Fund provides important opportunities also for our defence industry, including in the Baltic states. There are a number of projects which had been, which European Defence Fund is financing also in the Baltic states. So it's clear that we need to develop those defense capabilities in close cooperation with the private sector.
Thank you very much. I actually, when I was listening to your presentation, I thought it very much coincides what and really reflects on what the foreign investors were saying in terms of the simplification and implementation of the measures that the support or the way how the public sector and the private sector could cooperate together really could come at the simple terms. And I think great to hear that now Omnibus report is really taking a lot of the compliance cost from the big companies and normalizing it, while understanding that the reforms for the small and medium enterprise for the EU as well bring certain simplification measures. I think when we talk about the fast and resilient Baltic cooperation, this is definitely what it's need. My question to you, Commissioner, would be how fast do you think the European Commission could move with all the simplification, and when we could see really the real impact in the countries which really works together?
Indeed, when we are discussing our competitiveness compass agenda, one of the priority work directions is simplification or cutting the red tape. And actually from Commission side we are moving very fast and very ambitiously. If you look at this year European Commission work program, out of 18 initiatives, 11 are linked to simplification, and already we have put out quite a few proposals. So-called Omnibus 1 on simplifying sustainability reporting and sustainability due diligence requirements. Omnibus 2 on public investment, including as regards EIB investment. So we have been preparing this also in close cooperation with EIB. We had more recently adopted the package on simplification in common agricultural policy, and a new proposal on kind of creating new definition for European companies of small mid-caps with a corresponding alleviation also for small mid-caps. There are more proposals in a pipeline, like a digital package for a fourth quarter of the year, a defense omnibus, revision of REACH as regards chemical industry, and also we had set up the system through the implementation dialogues to discuss with relevant industries, with all relevant stakeholders, how the implementation of EU legislation is going and what further can be done to simplify it. So there I urge you all to actively participate in those implementation dialogues and in general in providing the feedback about simplification, because it's clear that it also requires sustained push by the business community to make it happen. Because already now, for example, we see as regards the first omnibus, so we put forward quite ambitious simplification proposals, but on some of the elements, well, we are having some pushback from certain quarters in European Parliament, which I would say is not unexpected, but also quite a bit of a pushback on a number of elements in the Council, which is probably more unexpected. So on one hand, EU member states were calling for simplification revolution, and when European Commission is putting forward concrete proposals, immediately, there are elements where somehow a number of member states actually are not willing to simplify. So that's why I'm emphasizing that it requires also a constant push by the business community. That it is important that there's a push on the European Commission that we are delivering ambitious proposals as regards simplification, but also on Member States and European Parliament as a co-legislators, they actually seeing those proposals through the legislative process, because it's only what comes at the end of legislative process is what businesses will really feel.
Thank you very much. I would like to go back to defense. And now, Māris, I would like you to take the floor and comment. And as we could see that actually what the foreign investors were saying in order to reduce the geopolitical and security concerns, the first four things what they see is EU-level economic and military collaboration, and definitely what we have heard about the European Union and the NATO as well. So maybe your reflection in terms of NATO and how the foreign investors are feeling, and where is the space for business in the defense industry, and how do you see it?
Well, thank you very much for, first of all, for inviting me to attend this conference. It's pretty challenging to speak after the minister. One has to be careful not to repeat what she has said, but perhaps more importantly, not to contradict what she said. Perhaps few reflections on the topic. Of course, first of all, appreciation. I think it's very important to have these researches because it gives kind of new angle to the policy makers to understand what are the expectations from the business community, from the investors. It helps to streamline their practical activities, and also it helps to streamline public communication, because this is one of the conclusions for me reading these researches, that perhaps there is a little bit of miscommunication. I'm not in the group saying that everything is fine, we are not able to explain our policies, but I think that there are some misunderstandings, and I will try to pick up a couple of points. Before doing that, I would actually advise if these researches can be distributed among our legislative branch, the parliament. Because executive, that's important, but in Latvia we are a parliamentary republic, and I think since number of those issues might need changes in our legislation, I think it would be important for our parliamentarians to learn about how the business community feels about these issues. Okay, surprises. One surprise, and indeed that was for me a surprise, and I think there is perhaps an issue of miscommunication, that 93% in Lithuania and almost 80% both in Estonia and Latvia believe that there is a need for closer cooperation in defense among the Baltic states. I have nothing against that, but I think if there is one area where we have the closest cooperation among three Baltic states, that's security policy and defense. It started in the 90s after we regained our independence. Joint military units, Baltic Battalion was established, educational institutions, Baltic Defense College in Tartu, enhanced forward presence of NATO troops in the Baltic states. I think largely this is a result of very coordinated diplomatic efforts in capitals and also at NATO headquarters in Brussels. And also when it comes to procurement, I think we have excellent examples. Perhaps the biggest one, or the most important one, is Latvia and Estonia signing together an agreement to purchase extremely important capabilities related to air defense from the German company Iris-T. We signed this agreement in 2023, and equipment will start to arrive our countries next year. I think there are a number of examples illustrating that this cooperation is very close. But I have suspicion that this comes, or this is related to another small notion in the research, that the people are saying, Well, perhaps because of geopolitical challenges, we have to look at the different structures, maybe here in the region, Poland and Finland, and Nordics. I think between the lines, one has to read, this is because the geopolitical new situation is related to new administration of United States. This is what I found between the lines. And here I would argue that we have to be very careful. Again, nothing against closer regional cooperation, but NATO is a bedrock of the security in the transatlantic area. It has fulfilled that mission for 76 years successfully, being united on the most important issues related to the deterrence and defense, despite of disagreements here and there. And I can, as a participant of a number of meetings, I can tell to this distinguished audience that from the new U.S. administration, and I'm not ambassador of the United States, ambassador of Latvia, I've heard from Secretary Rubio, Secretary Hexet, during the ministerial meetings at NATO, that commitment of United States to the NATO is strong, the commitment to Article 5 is strong. President Trump repeated that when he met Secretary General Mark Rutte in Washington. What the Americans are saying at the same time, that you Europeans, and we are a bit less than 700 million, you have to take more responsibility about security of your continent. But again, Trump is not the first one to say that. It was Obama in 2011 who said pivot to Asia. Many people have forgotten that. So therefore NATO, and I will close on that, I think NATO has made a very bold steps since 2022 when Russia launched this war of aggression against Ukraine in improving infrastructure, in improving command structure, additional investments in defense capabilities, defense plans. I think we are on the good track.
Super.
Yeah.
Maris, thank you very much. In the cautious of time, our dear financiers, I would like to ask you the provocative questions. Do you see the future in the Baltics, the investments of the Baltics, and what would be your next steps, or what are the areas you as a bankiers would be looking for the Baltics in order to improve further the sentiment of the foreign investors and really the trust in the whole economic areas?
I've had the honor to work with the Baltic region, not only as Vice President of European Investment Bank, but also when I was Executive Director at the International Monetary Fund, representing the Baltics and the Nordics. And I must say the first prerequisite to have a strong and dynamic economy is to have a strong macroeconomic policy. And there, I mean, the three Baltic states are second to none when it comes to having a strong, consistent macroeconomic policy, with the lessons, of course, coming from the huge financial crisis. But sustaining all these challenges, COVID, Russian aggression, and still keep macroeconomic policies on track. That is, I think, a very strong starting point. There is a very strong small and medium-sized companies sector in the whole of the region. And I think this is a key area for us. How can we support financing of SMEs in this region by cooperating not least with local and regional actors, Luminor, Citadel and others? We have done very interesting projects to see to that the financing reaches small and medium-sized companies. Innovation, I think, is key, where we have been working with what we call venture debt, where we can go in with an injection to a small or medium-sized, highly innovative company to help them scale up, to take their business out on the international arena. And that, I think, we have very nice opportunities also going forward in the Baltic region. Infrastructure, of course, we discussed everything from railway to bypass roads. We are looking actively for these type of infrastructure projects that are supportive of economic integration. And energy. I think this is a key area. We talked about relatively high energy prices compared to the Nordics. I mean, there must be investments in energy, sustainable production of energy, but also interconnectors and energy efficiency, where the opportunities are very large, to see to that we have joint projects together to reach a better situation for energy accessibility and prices. We have plenty to do, but there is also very strong steer from the leadership in these countries, and where they point out their priorities. When it comes to security and defense, we think that this is a future area for us to cooperate very tightly with the Baltic governments. We are in advanced discussions with all three on investments in the field of security and defense. We see a gap in the supply side sector in the security and defense system, where small and medium companies might need an extra push when it comes to access to liquidity. We will do efforts there. And innovation, of course. This is a field where I think we will see a lot of innovation, and where we need to step up as a bank to support that. So these are a few of the areas that I see going forward.
Okay.
I will not repeat what Thomas already said, but I would maybe emphasize one other point, which is the Baltics are not in the bad place when it comes to the investment climate. I think in the global context we should see that. Also the cooperation is pretty good. Maybe only the Nordics, perhaps Benelux is more closely connected region. But what I think would be helpful would be to still continue to rely on private markets, and I mean capital markets as well. I think each of the three governments continues to say this is very important, and private money and all that. But when it comes to specific actions on the capital markets, where the two foundation elements, which is the infrastructure in place and the laws and regulations in place, is there. But I think there could be a lot more that the governments can also do in terms of actually helping issuance to be a little bit more broad-based, state-owned enterprises, minority stakes, but also then, to think of the investor base. How do we do it? And Florian from the Deutsch-Baltische Handelskammer has also said the branding element. I think there is a lot more to do on that. We as NIB, we look very closely into that capital market space. We have been investing into labeled bonds all along. We have now also opened the conventional bond market for ourselves to invest in the Baltics, and we have done so, starting with some of the larger companies like Latvia Energo. Last week we invested 10 million euros in the Altum bond. We were given 3 days notice. We managed to pull ourselves together, did it, and we will do it again. So I think these are the few elements. And then finally, one thing maybe going back to that sentiment study, which something that surprised me, there seemed to be very low appreciation of the EU support to the Baltics. I don't think that's the case, to be honest. The Baltics have been one of the best users. I think there is a lot more to do. It has even made the banks such as EIB and NIB to do more through the Invest EU program, which is a fantastic way to leverage EU money and to get a lot more done that is perhaps slightly riskier than we would otherwise do. So I think, and that kind of links back a little bit to what Maris says on the defense side, that yes, NATO maybe is the shield at the moment, but it's all of the above that was on the previous slide. Stronger countries make stronger regions make stronger Europe.
Thank you very much. Commissioner Valdis Dombrovskis, do you have any of the sort of, maybe as a wish to the Baltic ministers and the businessmen, how can we be bolder, more agile, more force-going to get the maximum out what EU could give to the Baltic environment as well?
First of all, I would say stay the course, because the priorities are set, and also today's conference shows that we are broadly sharing the priorities, and indeed the main focus on strengthening the defense and strengthening the competitiveness. There is always value in regional cooperation, and there is lots of economic potential in this. Baltic states are among each other's largest trading partners, for example. Not to forget, we are developing a joint Baltic capital markets project. There are other initiatives, so I think there is lots of potential in those regional cooperation initiatives. Of course, as regards security and defense, Baltic states need to continue to be at the forefront of this work also at the broader European Union and NATO level, because in the Baltic states we feel those geopolitical threats most acutely. In a sense, we need to remind also other colleagues which are probably further away from Russia and therefore not feeling those threats so acutely as we do in importance of this defense and security agenda. Probably one wish which was already picked by some colleagues before from this investor sentiment index, that probably we should in a sense stop complaining and stop being so negative about ourselves, also to project more our successes and our strengths, because that's also then how the outside world will see us. Thank you.
Thank you. Colleagues, right now I open the floor to the questions from the audience. Do we have the questions from the audience? Yep. Yeah, just a moment.
Thanks.
Please, if you could stand up and
sure.
say,
Yeah, sure.
say your name and...
James Samuel. I represent my own company. I invest in Asia, into the Baltics. So I have a question for you, sir, Mr. Dombrovskis. Recently, American administration, current administration, said that they're going to levy 50% tariffs from July the 9th. How would it affect businesses between the Baltics and the West? And would you try to recover these tariffs that might, I think, would reduce your capacity to further your investment plans into Asia? Would you kind of de-invest, or how would you manage this tariffs? Would you reciprocate with equally high tariffs? Right now it's 20%. It was supposed to be just at 20%, but it's now at 50%. So what are your plans for this, and how would it affect your defense plans? It would definitely chip it down. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you for this question. Indeed, well, as regards the tariffs, there had been quite a few twists and turns. So, indeed, if we speak about reciprocal or so-called reciprocal tariffs, which President Trump administration is putting to other countries, initial announcement in early April was about 20% tariff. Then there was a 90-day suspension partial suspension. 10% tariff still applies, and that was meant to give negotiations a chance, try to agree some kind of bilateral agreement with US. And our negotiators are currently indeed negotiating with US, as US is negotiating with many other countries, trying to find some mutually acceptable solution. So indeed this 50% tariff announcement came as a surprise, because it neither corresponds to the level of previously announced quote-unquote reciprocal tariff, nor the introduction date of 1st of June is consistent with the 90 days pause, which should expire by mid-July. As you know, today there was a new announcement, and now the introduction of those tariffs is postponed to 9th of July, so it's more or less consistent with this original 90 days pause. So it's important that we are using this time efficiently and reaching mutually acceptable solution, because all in all, our assessment is that the tariffs are going to have negative economic impact on the EU economy, even more so on the US own economy, because they are casting very widely this net of tariffs, and leads to the risks of further economic fragmentation, so something which we need to avoid. So that's why we are on one hand invested in finding an acceptable solution with US bilaterally, but also working to preserve multilateral rules-based trading system. Thank you.
Any other question, colleagues? Yeah. No, you need to speak with the mic.
Hello. My name is Vita Lepin. I'm representing from Riga. I would like to ask a question also for Valdis Dombrovskis regarding what comes next. We see right now EU support instruments. Is there any keynotes we can expect after 2027? Maybe you can share a bit with us. Thank you.
Indeed. That's a very pertinent and very timely question. So what is happening in post-2027 EU's multi-annual budget? And indeed, in European Commission now we are working towards a proposal which is currently scheduled for mid-July. So some of the main elements had been outlined already. So on one hand, we want to streamline and consolidate different funding instruments. Because if you look, for example, at the cohesion fundings, there are many funds. There is a cohesion fund, there is European Fund for Regional Development, there is European Social Fund Plus, there is a Just Transition Fund, there is Climate Social Fund. So it makes sense, in a sense, to go towards less fragmented funding landscape, to have also more uniform set of rules and more flexibility for allocating the funding where it's actually most needed. So the thinking goes towards the more uniform fund with national envelopes, and there obviously it's important that the principles of cohesion as a treaty-based policy and regional focus is preserved, and that's obviously an important topic also for the Baltic states. Then, as regards EU-wide funds, we are also seeking towards some consolidation of those funds with a competitiveness fund, which would, so to say, encompass a number of existing funding instruments, and similarly also with a single external fund. Okay, where exactly we'll land those discussions, it's still, I would say, subject to discussion, because obviously they are also, in a sense, interest and voice preserving some specific funding instruments, or at least features of those funding instruments. And then there are questions which we'll still need to answer, including on the overall size of the EU budget, because we clearly see that there is a challenges are mounting up, and there are new challenges which we need to address, including defense and security, which is a new area for the EU, including stronger emphasis on competitiveness. At the same time, we cannot forget about existing priorities, including cohesion and regional development. So there's going to be difficult trade-offs also. What does it mean on overall size of the EU funding, in a sense, how much ambition we have, how much member states are willing to contribute to this joint European project. So those are still all discussions which are in front of us.
Colleagues, any other questions? Okay, thank you very much. There is a question?
Yes, I had a question. Again, to Mr. Dombrovskis. Given the fact that Germany has woken up, and in the sense that they are going to be spending a lot more for defense, also for other types of investments in infrastructure, etc. And if we calculate what that would mean for the German budget, and that would mean that they would most likely surpass the 3% budget deficit rules that the Stability and Growth Pact sets. And even with this, with the kind of break from the SGP rules that the European Commission now offers, most likely German ambition is too large for what the European Union normally allows. So how will this be treated? Will that mean that that this fiscal framework is again revisited? And what that would mean also for the Baltic states. So if the fiscal framework is revisited, does that mean that we will be able to spend even more on defense than we are currently allowed? Thank you.
Thank you for this question. Well, first of all, on EU fiscal framework, it's worth noting that it's recently revisited and it's in place for slightly more than a year now. So based on this new fiscal framework, large majority of member states have already prepared their medium-term fiscal structural plans according to the new rules. And there are features in a new fiscal framework which provides for more flexibility. I was talking in my speech about this coordinated activation of national escape clauses. That's a novelty that didn't exist in old fiscal rules. And also member states have more leeway in setting their fiscal adjustment trajectories. So when we now discuss specific situation in Germany, actually last week I had a meeting with the new German minister, Klingbeil, and we discussed all of those issues, and obviously I was emphasizing the importance, in a sense, to stay within this new EU fiscal framework and to use flexibilities which are available there. And from that point of view, first of all, Germany has abolished the so-called debt brake, which already provides more fiscal flexibility because that was more restraining than EU fiscal rules. Second, Germany, when preparing its medium-term fiscal structural plan, may decide to opt for 7 years plan instead of 4 years plan by presenting additional reforms and investments, and this again provides for then more gradual fiscal adjustment. And on top of this, Germany is among the countries which has requested activation of national escape clause for defense. It provides additional 1.5% of GDP fiscal flexibility for 4 years starting this year. So there is sufficient additional flexibility which Germany will be able to use, but more concretely on those plans we will be seeing now as a new German government will be preparing their medium-term fiscal structural plan, because that is a document which European Commission is going to assess.
André, would you like to make a short intervention?
Just to reflect, this is one of the moments where I feel that it's great I'm not a politician. But I think what is really important is that we have 3 very disciplined countries. Discipline is fantastic, but without investment, growth does not happen, and our demographics doesn't help. So I think to only take care of the cost problem is not going to be the winning solution. So I would suggest we need to invest. We need to invest bravely, and we need to get others that co-invest with us. And use the banks here. We can give not only the money, but also the know-how how to do things.
Yeah. I think what's just ending our panel, I think what struck me when we were talking is really the development is in being brave, being agile, really take the opportunity and see for the solution rather than for the problem. Because the problem we could find in everything, and sometimes we say that we are very good at it. So let's manage the risk rather than to avoid the risk, and we definitely could succeed in the future. Thank you very much, gentlemen. It was really a good panel. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Zlata, and thank you, dear panelists. So we are